Hello and welcome to the Digga podcast, where we talk about everything to do with earth-moving attachments. Join Digga CEO Alan Wade, product specialist Anthony Weekman, and head of marketing Lionel Smitka for a blend of helpful information, interviews and funny stories from the past 40 years.
Alan, Anthony, thank you for joining me for another episode. As we promised last time, we're going to divide the podcast into several different segments which we'll cover off each week. We may change it up from time to time just to keep it interesting. So first off, we have Q&A. This is where we cover off questions from the previous episode or just general questions about Digga and attachments. All right, the first question comes from Malcolm, and Malcolm wants to know, what happens when you hit rock when you're installing a pile?
Once upon a time, if you hit rock, you'd probably decide that it's not a screw anchoring job. You'd move on into traditional board piers, but I guess with the the geotechs getting better reports and all the modern equipment for deciding what's under the ground before they build, they know that if it's a rock shelf or a rock layer or thin or whatever they've got to go through, so they'll traditionally drill through that now. So they'll do a pre-bore, so they'll bore it out with a traditional auger, and just for that layer, not the full depth.
And they won't remove any spoil.
Yeah, they'll leave the spoil in that hole, and so they'll get down and go through that rock layer. I have seen there's some screw anchors where they'll have like a little, not that we're screw anchor manufacturers by any means. We don't know the full science of how those anchors are made, but there are different styles of anchors for different applications. So I have seen ones where they've got almost like a little king's crown, like a lead-in pilot that must be designed to get through some of those harder layers.
And probably just Charlie type stuff and softer, softer sandstones and stuff like that.
But I would have thought once you hit rock, wouldn't that mean that you've hit
the layer that's not going to go through or you're going to build on?
Terra firma.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's where the industry's, from back in the early days when we were first knocking around, guys just ring, I just got to drill to refusal, so they'd have a crappy auger with no teeth on it, get down a couple hundred mil and go, oh, no, that's refusal, and then they'd be building their house on a rock, like a boulder, It's just, it was just a bit of hard ground that their crappy auger couldn't get through. So it's come a long way, the foundation drilling industry, and their reports and engineering reports are a lot more substance behind them, I guess.
I think a lot of the screw piers came in. It was actually coming back in to support the foundations that have been put onto soft ground.
Almost underpinning.
They're underpinning, yeah. It basically became, it was underpinning. It was to do exactly that, where the older piers were put onto floaters, and over time those floaters sunk. So did the building or the foundation. So in come the screw anchor and prop the building back up. Yeah. And that's a big industry. I know in the US it's a big industry because they're always doing a lot of the older homes there where the foundations are just cracking and moving.
So what happens if Malcolm is only putting piers in to do a deck and he's not getting a geotechnical report of the ground? After 20 centimetres hits something hard, do we then put concrete in there instead? Yeah,
I guess he'd have to reassess how he's going to get that through and whether he does a small pre-drill to get that ground anchor that he's putting in to hold up his deck.
It's all load bearing. It's not what load's going to go onto the deck,
Yeah, you need to decide, if it can sustain it at that sort of depth or whether he's got to get it deeper or...
All right. So the second question comes from EJ. I'm not sure whether EJ is male or female, but they want to know...
Sounds female to me.
How long a pile will last in the ground, and wouldn't the pile rust?
It's underground is like something underwater. He won't sort of rust until you got oxygen involved. So while it's down deep, it's not going to rust. But again, the engineers will factor in the deterioration over the pile, and they'll give a pile life. And then there's ways of either extending that, whether it's thicker material or whether it's a coating over it to protect it. I know if they're in close to salt, where they're on the coast or something like that, they will fill the centre of the screw anchor with concrete. You were saying something, Al, about a special coating.
Oh, yeah, ceramics. They're using ceramics in certain areas of the US. Galvanising, of course, but gal tends to come off. But I think when they if they galvanise anchors, I always use the analogy. You look at a typical, say, cyclone type fence, a wire fence, and they're all the gal posts that go into the ground. When a gal post will always rust at the surface, at the top, where it touches the ground, above the ground. But if you had to dig that actual post out, you find that the post is still intact under the ground into the concrete that's obviously poured around it. It's still intact. It's only right at the surface. And I think by galvanising a screw anchor is that even though you're installing it and the gal is probably being taken off by the spoil as it's been installed, it will still be galvanised at the surface. I don't know numbers. Again, as Ant mentioned before, we don't make poles, so we don't know the science behind it all and what it is. But, you hear numbers that, poles are rated from 60 to 100 years, a life. What does that mean? You see buildings that, thousands of years old in Europe, and they're still standing. So, and what's their foundations like? So,
I guess it's got to be said we supply auger drives and not screw piles. So it's not a topic that we.
That can be one of our next guest speakers, one of the pole manufacturers.
So take this advice, and go and refer to a professional.
Yeah,
we're only sort of saying what we've heard. All right, the next segment is called "What Have You Been Up To?" And I'm sure you guys tackle 1,000 different tasks over a given week. But is there any tasks that you can share with us that you think would be interesting to the listeners?
There's probably a lot of things I could talk about, but I'd probably have to shoot you both.
We haven't got the level of clearance.
You haven't got the security clearance for that stuff. But no, look, just in my day-to-day, probably of late, it's trying to, if I can say, keep up with the incredible growth that we've had over the last 18 months. Even bearing in mind, with COVID sort of ravaging the world, the need for product has continued to grow. And for whatever reason, that's both domestic, in Australia, the US, Europe. It's just grown. So, in my role, it's trying to keep our plants, as in Australia, the Australian facility here in Queensland, the branches in New South Wales and Victoria, our US branch and our UK facilities is trying to keep them at the forefront. And we've had.
I suppose you've got to work them as hard as you can without burning everybody out.
Yeah,
too,
like the US, we had massive growth last year. 50% growth year on year, and that facility had to grow. And we thought we'd built that for, that was going to give us 10, 15 years before we'd have to do anything to it. But it's sort of at 8 years, we've just had to put on another, what would you say, another 2,000 square metres or something onto the facility to keep up with the growth. We've got a state of the art machine shop here in Queensland. There's not enough man hours in the week to keep up with the demand for the machine components that go into our gearboxes and into anything. Whether that's gearboxes, whether that's the parts for the loaders. We just didn't have enough man hours to keep up with that. So, and a lot of it was going to the US. So now we've put CNC centres into the US facility. I think they're up to, they've probably got four CNC centres there now, and growing. And robotic welding cell, they've put that into the US as well to keep up demand. So that sort of consumes a lot of my time, is trying to keep up with that.
And I think you're looking for a new factory in the UK as well.
The UK, the UK. We've got a facility there. It's bursting at the seams. For us to keep up with the continued growth that's coming out of not just the UK but out of Europe. And so UK supplies the UK itself, but also France. We've got big distributors in Central Europe and in Poland. Big with in Russia. Out of the UK, they keep all the dealerships all through that southern part of Europe. Keep them with product. So we're looking for facilities there. It's a different world, the UK, with trying to find, I don't know, they seem to have a knack of building new old, and we're more of a modern type of manufacturer. So we're looking for a specific facility that's more in tune with how we want to set things up. They have lower roof heights and whatever, and I don't know whether it's because of the weather or whatever, but anyway, we continue that search, and I'm sure we'll get there shortly.
Has the Brexit thing impacted us over there at all? Has that changed how they've done business?
Well, the thing that Brexit has affected us is CE certification.
Oh yeah, the engineering boys have been madly working on that, haven't they?
CE. So all of a sudden, CE, which is the compliance for the Europe, is then now not valid.
Not across everywhere, yeah.
Not across. You've got to have.
In there, the US is like California certification is
different to the rest of the US.
I know.
And these are things. Look,
a lot of people don't realise that's how much work we put in behind our product. We don't just build a product. We make sure it's compliant around the world. That's doing every user manual in a different language and a different compliance, and it's quite involving.
It is. It's all consuming. It's not just as easy as as building an auger. Welding some flights on a piece of pipe and selling it. It's what goes on behind that. And if I call it a big beast, it is a big beast. What we face day to day, but we do what we do because we love what we do.
And we put that behind our product. We make sure that the product is compliant with all governments and regulations, and make sure that it's safe, and make sure that it's not going to, injure anyone, or So it's while there might be other products out there, they might be a little bit cheaper, a little bit more accessible. Are they as good as?
Yeah. And it's the
what we put
time that it takes, not just my time, but it's the individual times, and whether that involves our salespeople, our dealers, our salespeople, engineering department, our what we call change management team. Every little change involves a lot of people. Simple example, right now here on the Gold Coast in Queensland, we've been asked to supply brooms to a local government, but we have to have our tie-down points certified.
That's right, yeah.
I'm not saying this is ridiculous, but it's at the point of. But we've got to now certify our tie-down points on our attachment. Yeah. And what's involved in that is not a go do it.
Yeah, you just put a tie-down point on and paint
but
it yellow.
It eats into the profit and eats into this. And
adds to the time that you can get something to market. There's a lot that goes, you can look at a product and go, yep, I could make that. We all know how to make a widget, whatever we're going to make, and that part of it's the easy bit. It's all the behind the scenes things that go into setting that up, and it's huge, down to where the cereal plate's going to sit, what information's on that cereal, what standard are we building it to? Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be used for applications that it's not designed for, and how do we protect against that? So it's a huge beast to do.
Sure is. Yeah. Now, Anthony, what have you been up to?
Well, I've sort of taken on a new role, a digger. I've stepped out of the sales role of sales manager, and after the majority of my digger life has been sales, so it's sort of a new adventure. But part of my digger life has always been the product and the product development, and I love our products, so I have taken on a product management role. So that is doing a lot of what we just spoke about, that behind the scenes thing, and making sure that we're getting to market as quick as we can, and just working with our other departments to ensure that that the project, whatever is on at the time, gets out to market, and we've ticked all our boxes, and then it's also about training new sales staff, existing sales staff, fixing small things that go astray in our day-to-day life of, our descriptions, can they be better, and lots of little things like that. So it's probably a role we've never had really, Alan.
I think that everyone's tried to cover that role, and we've always managed to get product to market, but it's just taken that period of time, and putting yourself in there with the knowledge that you've got from all your years. It's getting that new product or getting an improvement to an existing product to market quicker. It's just sort of like, we always say, like if you've watched the product videos that Ant does on our Facebook site. unless you've seen the blooper, Ant knows everything about the attachments, and it's taking that knowledge. But I won't say that knowledge was wasted in sales, because that's a big part of Ant's life in the company. But now to take that to the next level inside the business, and I think it's opened Ant's eyes about what happens inside the business.
Yeah, absolutely. You think you have an insight of, I thought I pretty well knew how it all worked and got put together, but it's to another level. It's deeper than what you think, and.
In reality, you're the link between the customer, between sales, between marketing, between engineering, purchasing. So you're the link between all the departments. Everybody's asking for a new product, or production might be asking you to remove a product because it's not high volume enough, and it's making that decision based on customer sales and everything else.
It's very much that. So it's very much as he's getting new product out, it's about reducing some of the stuff that we currently do that might use our resources up, that stops us from taking on those new roles. So it's defining the product and making sure that it's current to what we're putting into the market. So, are we doing too many slasher versions? So do we need to reduce that? So it's all things like that. So I'm enjoying it. It's a new challenge. It's a different way of looking at things. And, as much as I miss sitting with my crew of rowdy salespeople, I've probably gone from the noisiest department to the quietest department, sitting up with the marketing guys. So there's not much chatter there. The boys are busy doing all their things, and
they like their headphones. And
that's it. They need their level of concentration. And I come in with my little speaker and
ghetto blaster, we call it.
So I'm the annoying, noisy one now. So.
All right. So in that first month or so of you being in that position, you've launched a couple of new products already? Yeah,
we've done a couple of things. We knocked out a cement mixer adapter. So myself and Steve Goff worked on. It probably came from a three-way conversation between me, Alan, and Steve Goff. People have asked us over the time for, can I put in a mixer bowl onto a excavator? And while we think how many guys want to do that, it's amazing how many guys actually do want to just mix a quick mix up of a bowl, load and put it down using their excavator. It's always been that it's a whole other attachment. You've got to disconnect your drive unit and a whole heap of mucking around. And there's been different ones on the market, and I think Al just said, what if we locked off the linkage arm somehow, and that set a light bulb off for Steve Goff, and we sort of chit-chatted more, and then Steve come back, I don't know, an hour or two later, and goes, do you mean this? Yeah. And that was the concept of the first one that we put out, and we did a couple of versions, 3 or 4 versions, and refined it a little bit more. And
we broke it a couple of times, and
tested it up, and the thing had Dominic up there, bashing into the ground and splashing the excavator with all sorts of mud and bits and pieces we had in it. But we think we came up with something that, one, it was very low impact on the factory itself, so there's no actual fabrication, there's no welding in it, there's no machining in it. It's all been designed and folded, so it's basically a laser cut and then folded, and it all just brilliantly clips together, locks out that linkage arm, holds the drive unit off at a 15 degrees, and then we're now looking at a 25 degree for those smaller machines, because it's just putting the bowl a little bit close. And within minutes, you can turn your auger drive into a cement mixer.
We talk, like product development and stuff, part of what Ant's involved with. When we first had that chit chat, and like Ant said, I walked away, and an hour and a bit later, Goffy comes back with what do you think about this? And I think that initial drawing, and I think they made that initial V1, if you want to call it, had 7 parts to it. 7 parts, and parts were welded. So it was going through all these processes in the factory, which were, you'd have to put so many processes in the system to make that work. And okay, is that viable at the end? And I don't know what version we're at now. It's probably 4 or 5
probably, yeah.
Before we've gone to market with it, is 2 pieces that are laser cut, folded, and now just clipped together. And that's it.
They even gain strength. a couple of areas where they bent, we gained strength by just putting a
Oh, yeah.
strategic fold or a bend in somewhere that
yeah.
they just changed the geometry of it. To
It,
give
and
it
it is.
extra
It's
strength.
something so simple, and and really by the end user to buy it, like to buy that individual piece is chicken feed.
Yeah.
It's a nothing, but it's what's gone in behind the scene to actually get that piece to market. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, so that's out and about. So people, I think there's a few guys down in Vic who already got them, and heading over to South Australia. So we also rolled out our mini GP and mulch bucket. While we had a GP and a mulch bucket in the Kanga range, we were getting requests for those to be pushed across into the other brands. What we probably had in the past was probably not what we really wanted, so that went through a quick redevelopment, made some come out the other end, which is pretty good. It's nice and compact, so it's not adding too much weight to your machine, your hose machine, but it's big enough that it's going to pick up what capacity you need. And then that mulch bucket is just for those landscaping yards and guys who are, you can mix a couple of batches if you're doing a organic mix or something like that, and you want to put your own blend, and it's just a higher volume bucket. It's got higher size to allow you to pick up that sort of very low weight but big bulky material. And so there's nothing that reinvents the wheel. It's just a good standard product that complements the range.
It helps with our customers out there that keep coming back, that we're a one-stop shop.
That's it.
They can get everything from ramps to run their machine up onto their trucks to now to the buckets. We've always done the 4-in-1s, but now that just your GP bucket, your mulch bucket, we've become basically a one-stop shop.
Yeah, and it's amazing. The GP bucket's probably a bit of a plays second fiddle to the 4-in-1 out here. Yet the US is 4-in-1's almost unheard of. You see the shows and they're digging with the 4-in-1. With the GP, and they're leveling. They do everything that our guys do with the 4-in-1. So there's a bit of that coming into the Australian market where guys are just looking for that GP bucket type thing. So we complement them with that. Yeah. So we've got another project that's sort of it's getting close to coming through, which is the bale spears. It's just going to be, even though we do a combo set of bale spears now, where it's bale spears and a pallet fork, there's those guys that are just looking for a real economy set, just a basic 2-prong, 2-spear setup, and we've come up with a pretty cool design. Sean, one of our engineers, has been madly working on that, and I think we're up about version 3 of that. So that's basically just gone to production for the prototype.
Did you say 3 or 33?
Yeah. Look, it's had a checkered life. That's probably a whole episode in itself. The bale spears, but look, we've learned a lot from that, and how we've run that project within the business, using tools at our disposal like Microsoft Teams and running projects and timelines. So it's making us run our projects much more efficiently and get them out to market, where traditionally we were probably taking much longer. We'll hopefully get them out quicker.
But I think one of the things I've noticed with this project in particular is how we've involved a lot more the factory, some of the welders, some of the production guys in the development stage of the products, because their feedback on the manufacturing and parts of it has been incredible, and a lot of the versions have changed on their feedback.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very collaborative, the way that we've done this, and it's very different. I guess in the past we've always done it where each department's worked on their thing, and then that comes up with a roadblock when you pass it on, because you don't know what marketing needs. You design something and do something, and then marketing goes, but what about this, and did you think about that? Which then might step you back a few steps. So by getting everybody who's involved, marketing, production, engineering, sales, everybody's looking at from their sandpits and then making a better outcome.
The idea is put on the table. This is what we're looking for. In this case, I call it a simplified bale spear, because it was basically just going to be a very basic bale spear attachment. initially we did it without those people involved, came up with a concept, sent that down to the shop floor, and the shop floor came back and said, oh, we can't weld this on the robot because of, or we can't do this because of, and you know, I think that's what woke us up to. Hang on, we need these guys. The guy operating the laser, the guy you know on the brake press, the guy in the robot cells, to tell us exactly what that robot could do. Where could that make two at a time. Where could that tip get to? And the fact that we can make two at a time. So we're basically making two in the time of one. Yeah. Using unreal, and just by changing a design ever so slightly.
Yeah, which helps us then, because the idea is to get a product out under $1,000. Had to be, so if we did it all the other ways, then that price point was getting up there. So by getting that feedback and two at a time, buying the robots, all that just brings that down, that we can then deliver a product that's really neat and cool.
And I think, look, going forward with other projects we've got on, at the moment, to bring those guys in earlier than what we were in the past. I think that's really important. It's really stood out.
Well, at the end of the day, if marketing, we want all the bells and whistles. The customer wants all the bells and whistles for cheap. Engineering wants probably something that looks good, and performance. The production wants something that's made easily. So it's just finding the best of everything that everybody's happy with, and knowing that it's going to be the best product, at the end of the day. All right, so on my front, part of what I do is sort of trademark compliance.
What do you do, Lionel? We've always wondered what you do.
Well, here we go.
Podcast producer.
He's up there on his
and not a very good one either.
His ivory tower. Looking down on everyone.
No, but trademark compliance is one of the things that I look at, and we look at it weekly, monthly, depending on what it is. So we look at make sure that people use the Digga name correctly, and we make sure that companies make the correct claims. So just a couple of recent ones I thought I'd share with you. We came across a dealer who sold one of our competitors' products. And they claim that the auger driver they sold was Australian made, when we know that it's made overseas. So we contacted them, and obviously we do everything nicely. We don't involve the lawyers at first. Yeah. And it came back that they were told by the distributor that it was Australian made. And I know from conversations with you in the past, in your sales days, you've come across that before.
Yeah, there's many claims to being Australian made. There's ones where they'll bring a gearbox in and put a hood on and call it Australian made, or
put the stickers on,
or paint it, or something like that, or put a shaft in it, or or bring in all the pieces of the jigsaw and put it together and try and call Australian made. So maybe it's Australian assembled, but definitely there is no one making gearboxes the way we make gearboxes.
From scratch. Another one is there was
What about the ones that we see on websites where they use our images, but claim to be
another product.
Yeah, it's another product, but you go, that's our auger, or that's our drive unit.
Yeah,
and they're claiming it to be something else.
Oh, we see that all the time. Images is a big one. Our renders. And we spend thousands and thousands of hours creating renders, and then when you see them on Google Images, you click on them and they go to a Chinese made thing. It can be frustrating. So anyway,
that must drive Nick insane, the amount of hours he puts into those renders, and then he goes and sees his work on.
Well, he's great. He's the one that
website.
finds most of them and brings them attention, because I look at one and they all blend in one to the other, but he knows them inside out.
But it's the companies out there that I know you guys track down, that marketing's always on the lookout for. I shouldn't say track down. You're on the lookout for that. Make those claims to be Australian made, or manufactured in Australia, or whatever the terminology they use. That sort of I know it got up Susie's nose in the past, and Stuart's Stuart used to get ropeable when he would see those claims and knew that it wasn't, and now in the position I am, and understanding what it costs us to claim to be, to make those claims, or not those claims, to state that fact that
we've earned the right.
We've earned the right to put that tag Australian made, and
it's not something you can buy. You can't just buy that claim.
You can't buy that claim, and it's the people we employ. It's the machinery. We're over 340 odd people strong now. And the machining centres that we've got, the investments we've made in those machine centres, tens of millions of dollars.
But it's every year, it's ongoing,
It's
machines.
It's ongoing. We only just...
There's a frounder down the back the other day, you were putting something in one there in the machine shop.
Yeah, or just recent, we had an Integrex, which is a CNC centre, which survived the fire, all but just survived the fire, and we've been running on that machine. There's certain parts that we run in certain machines, but we've just had, because of the growth and everything, and that machine not being able to keep up with the demand. It's like, just like probably an 80 or 90-year-old trying to run a marathon. You need some young, fit guys to get in there. So, we just put 2 more CNCs, one to take over what it was doing, but also the other one for the growth, That's what I was saying before about the US. We're putting machine centres in there to keep up with the growth, and that's where that investment by an Australian company into an Australian manufactured product, albeit the product going to the US, it's still got our heart and soul. It's still got our gearbox. The products we send over there, our post-hole borers, our trenches in the US, still have that heart and soul. That's the gearbox and the gear sets. And we'll never let that go. I doubt even if the US went tenfold, we would still manufacture those gear sets in Australia because we want that control. We have to understand and know, what we're making and what's going into it. It's like I say, it's the heart.
Look, on a sales front, not every buyer looks at Australian made. Oh, no. But if somebody does, and if Australian made is going to make a difference to 1 out of 10 customers, then we earn the right to have the edge with that customer.
Yeah, well, it certainly makes a difference in recent times with the whole pandemic thing and the whole, keep it by Australia, keep in Australia. The claims of other companies that now want to try and just jump on board and go, we're Australian made is just exploded. So it's there's got to be truth behind that. We are truly Australian made. We are truly Australian owned. Nothing of our profits go overseas, and then there's all the businesses that support our business, all the suppliers and everything like that then feeds off that Australian manufacturer. So that's why we proudly wear that badge. Yeah. Where else do we go from that? Do you need like on packets of food now where they've got the little star rating of how much is actually Australian made?
And also, we know where we sell our product around the world, and the companies, and reputable companies. And I can use names. I can use names like JCB, Bobcat, even in the Caterpillar dealers. We have a range of products that's specific, for those guys. Bobcat, for many years used to always advertise against planetary drives. Direct drive was the thing, and they've got their place.
Got that range,
they've still got that range and still got their place. But it's when you step out, just outside that range, where a planetary comes into its own. And in the US, we do 2 specific models, badged, painted, liveried, all to Bobcat standard, and that all comes out of our US facility to Bobcat themselves, and they're now spreading. I think the last big trade show we did was probably Bauma. Was that 2019? 2019 Bauma. I was so proud to walk around to sites, to go to the Bobcat Europe stand, to the Bobcat stand at Bauma in Germany, and be standing next to a Digga drive. I think I sent photos back to Mark about how proud does this look? And go to other sites, go to Vermeer, and there's our mini loader stuff on Vermeer. It's...
Well, the thousands of gearboxes we supply, even ATI, they use it across their product.
That's a very old term, man.
ATI, I know.
They've changed names 6 times.
Black and Decker. Black and Decker, they are.
And that's it, but that's the the kudos or the credibility that we have as an Australian-made product. That's what gets up our nose when people try and ride on the back of that. That by making that claim, by just using that word in an advertisement.
Yeah.
And when they know, and like you said, that one particular dealer, that's what they were told by their supplier, that it was Australian made.
Yeah.
Okay, you can accept that, and I think he did his own investigation, found out that wasn't true, and he removed that wording.
Yeah.
All good to him. But it's the ones who know,
and still do it,
and still do it. They're the ones that really get up your nose. And
it's that reputation as an Australian manufacturer, right through to the nation, the big nations that you talk about, but even through into Asia, into the Philippines and India. We've got a Teams call today with an Indian dealer who's setting up a little drill rig, so those dealers are competing with, in their terms, in market would probably be a premium expensive product compared to what they can get locally, but they're still having success in moving our gearboxes into that market based on the reputation of an Australian made product. The Philippines are competing with Chinese products more so than what we do.
I remember, it's probably getting into story time, but I remember, Anthony, you and myself went to a trade show in Kentucky in the US, and it was way back, I don't think what year that was now, but it was when SCS came out and we were introducing it to America through a company, it was Pengo in those days over there. It was Pengo, so we were introducing it in the US through Pengo. And we had a demonstration table that we built here in Australia, and we shipped it across, and we were on this stand at this show in Kentucky, and it was in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. Anyway, and we're making all this noise, with this with this SCS demonstrating how it was.
Well, that table we made was almost the size of a boxing ring.
Two
little mini excavator arms.
Two excavator arms on it, all moved exactly like how your excavator arm would move, with the drive unit on the end and the SCS hooked up, and we're just showing you how you could go from hole to dumping spoil, back to hole, the time, and how it just improved your productivity and whatever. And I remember a guy coming up. I was standing on the outside of this boxing ring, if you want to call it that. I was standing on the outside, and this fella came up and he said to me, he goes, "Who invented this?" And because we couldn't say who we were or where we were from because we were representing Pengo at the time, we had to say, Pengo here in collaboration, with our company and that. And the guy goes, "No, where was this invented?" And I just said, "Oh, look, we're an Australian company, Digga, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "Oh, Australia, yeah, that makes sense." He goes, "I knew the Americans couldn't even think of anything like this." And that made us feel, okay. But that's sort of like where the reputation of Australia as a innovative country.
Well, we're so far away from everything. We have to be innovative.
Yeah.
That's why the operators down here, they've got every conceivable bit of gear that they can put on because they have to do it all. They have to try and, they haven't got 1,000 guys that you just call on and do it. So that's made our product range grow, as it did over the time, to meet that demand.
Yeah, I think what we do with skid steers here in Australia, I know it's actually probably
even mini loaders. You were saying today about mini loaders. Guys are building blinking houses and prepping the thing on with mini loaders.
Peering for houses with mini loaders. Okay.
So I guess the other thing that we monitor, and that, as you said, Al, gets up our goat, is Google ads and eBay ads when they say Bobcat, Auger Torque, Digga, Auger Drive. It can't be all three. It's one or the other. It's only got one manufacturer. They're trying to do that to improve their search results. They hoping that they appear when someone's looking for a Digga Drive, that they'll appear.
I don't know how you stop that. I mean, that's good.
Oh, you just mentioned to them that it's an infringement on our trademark. But you've got to have fair play. If someone's looking for a Digga Auger Drive, you've got to hope that they find one. And the other thing is companies claiming that they're a Digga dealer. when they don't even have an account with us. But they're hoping someone will call them and say, oh, you got Digga. Say, oh, yeah, we can't get that at the moment, but, have this one instead. And I think they're hoping that they'll generate traffic to their website by mentioning the word Digga, but it doesn't work that way. Unless you mention it over several pages, and you it's not going to happen.
Don't give secrets away.
No, I won't. One of the other things that I guess we had the pleasure...
You guys work very hard. I mean, that's true. You guys work very hard to make sure that all the searches that we appear, whenever anyone is looking for a Digga product, that we appear in those searches.
It's a massive part of our business.
And we don't do it you can go and pay for that advertising, but we do it the legitimate way, and we search very well, and you guys do a fantastic job.
It's just keeping up with the way of the world these days. We used to, marketing was about getting your ads into magazines, and which magazine's got the best sort of circulation and reach to the public, and remember, the old day, Earth Mover and Excavator we called it the Bible.
Yep.
It was the Bible, and I would get that.
Sat on every desk.
It was on every desk, and it'd be in every bathroom, and you would go through that every month that would come out. You would just go through it, and you'd see so much, you'd read so much, you'd find out so much from that one publication. To nowadays, everyone's on the internet, And I think it's from I know your marketing guys are always keeping up with that make sure that the right stuff's on there and tracks the right people.
Yeah, and that we're using the right media to reach our market
Banner
audience.
ads and all that.
Yeah. So anyway, one of the other things that that we did during the month was that we organised a family day for our Queensland workers. Not to single out the Queensland workers, the New South Wales and Victorian workers will have their go once
they get out of restriction.
But we thought it was important. Our staff have worked very hard over the last 12 months. We've had a bit of an issue getting enough staff for the turnover that we have. So a lot of them have worked extra hours. They've worked weekends to get product out.
Well, there's been times in this past 12 months that we've been 24/7. Basically, we've worked Sundays, and I think by that family day was more of it was a thank you to the worker, but it was also a thank you to the wives and
an apology.
boyfriends and girlfriends and whatever, and to their kids. Was to hey, we're sorry for taking your partner away for this for this period of time, but here's a thank you from the company. Get together, and it was a raging success. I thought it was a brilliant night.
Fantastic, There was over 250 people. Dream world to themselves. It is. We had a lot of fun.
It was
Did
a
get
lot
stuck
of fun.
on one of the rides. That was a little scary, but.
Only one injury in the ice skating, which was very good.
Oh no, it wasn't Sherry. Banned from the skates.
It was great, and it's I think for everyone it was, and especially all the managers and that who've got people under you and those people coming up and saying thank you, or their wives coming up, or their kids. Even that was to me it was like a lump in the throat moment when some little kid comes up and say, "Oh, thank you for this," and it was so cute.
But we do have so many new workers as well. A lot of them, and because of COVID, they haven't experienced the monthly barbecues that we do and everything, just to get a bit of an insight of what Digga is like as a company. So I think it was great.
It's amazing to see at those functions how much of the partners know each other. They're I haven't seen you. I know my wife Nicole. She'll go out and she'll go talk to Billy's wife and those sorts of things, and that where they're catching up and they haven't caught up since for a while because we haven't had the functions because of COVID. They enjoy those nights to actually get out and catch up and see what they've been doing and see their kids grow up. I look at Micah's kids that were little rugrats and now they're looking you in the eye and all looking down on you. It's how everyone just evolves and those. So everybody in the extended part of the Digga family is involved in that sort of thing. So
one of the other things that we're involved in at the moment is we're launching Halo into the UK. I think we're launching on the 6th of September. So, there's all the magazine advertising, the editorials that we're putting together, all the banner ads. There's just flyers, brochures, websites to be built. So we're just working our way through it at the moment. The interesting thing is, like, everything that we develop, your email footers, your website banners, your reskins, you make it and it says coming soon, and then you launch it and you've got to redo it all again to say out now. So, you're sort of doubling your work. But, it's something that we're quite busy on. This leads perfectly onto our next segment, which we've called Product Showcase. This is where we talk about a product where we don't necessarily have a whole episode to talk about. So just where we're going to spend a few minutes on talking a new product. So I thought this time around we'd talk about Halo. Anthony, for our listeners that don't know what Halo is.
So Halo is a alignment system. It's going to assist that operator to get the hole drilled nice and straight, or if they want to option up to the battery pack, they can set it off at whatever degrees they want. If they're doing angled bore holes, they can set it to that, and it will keep them at that alignment and that they choose each time. So it's a LED light ring that sits around the base of the hood on the drive. So unlike our traditional alignment systems where you would have a in-cab display, your eyes are coming off that drive unit, looking down into your cab, back to the drive unit, in-cab, back to the drive unit. That's distracting. Or traditionally guys have got a spotter out there telling them left, right, forward, back. This alignment system is a green ring of lights that fully illuminates and tells them that they're straight, or it'll start flashing red if they're going offline, and then you move back to the green to get that straight. So it just makes the whole job site more versatile, gets the jobs done quicker. That guy that would traditionally be spotting can go off and be utilised elsewhere on the job site or prepping the next hole. So it's so simple. It's not a mercury switch like our other alignment systems, so it's not affected by vibration or anything like that. It's 6-7 sensors in the hood that is doing calculations and making sure that drive unit stays nice and straight. And that's on everything from now, our PDX or PDD through to our PD50. So with the other big drives in development that will come online later on.
Yeah, Halo for me is one of those products which is probably similar to air conditioning in cars or power windows in cars. When it first came out, you go to the new car lot and you go, I don't need air conditioning, for $100.
2 windows down at 40 k's. Yeah, $240.
I've driven, with the windows open all my life, my father didn't have air conditioning. He coped with windows, and his grandfather didn't have air conditioning on his horse. Why do I need it? We get that, but now you wouldn't buy a car without air conditioning. No. You wouldn't think about doing it.
I don't think there's a car offered without air conditioning.
No.
God, showing age here, but radios used to be an option.
Yeah.
CD player. Who was the last time stuck a CD in a car?
So I think Halo's the same. People are currently, or a lot of people are currently saying, I don't need Halo and so on. But down the track, it'll be standard on every drive, and it'll be the norm.
Write that to you, Lionel, as a bit of a feedback. They say, I said I didn't need this. Now I don't know what I'd do without it.
Yeah, that's the biggest feedback we get is I didn't think I'd need it. Whether sales convinced them to get it, or that they just decided to spend that extra money, or we threw it in for free at that initial stage of Halo when we launched it. But that's the feedback. Everybody just loves it. We had a guy that broke it, and he was in a panic. He wanted it back. He didn't know how he was going to drill without it. So he needed a new battery for it.
But it's just something that once you've got it, you don't realise how much easier it makes the job and how much quicker it makes the job.
Yeah. There's not just the advantages of the safety, because you don't have a spotter there, or saving money with a spotter, but you're also not looking inside the cab you've got that vision. You're always looking at the hole. You're always drilling straight, so you're not putting a side load on the drive. You're not drilling a larger size hole because you're drilling straight, so it's going to cost you less in concrete. So we're getting a lot of feedback, which is really positive, and things that we hadn't even thought of.
And
It's
for,
a very good
also for
product.
the operators out there that haven't got Halo on their existing drives, we have got the retrofits available now on the
Up to
PD3 to
the
PD7.
Yeah. So there'll be a lot of guys out there with the standard drive, and hey, you can get a retrofit kit now. So just call our sales department.
That's it.
Have a look at our website and YouTube. There's heaps of videos of it working, heaps of reviews. Check it out. It's a great product, and it's the future. You could be the first one to have it. All right, here's a new segment again. We call this one Flashback. And this is where we look back at something specific in our history, and it could be anything. But today we thought we'd go back to 2009 when Digga acquired Kanga loaders. Alan, what's your recollection of how it all came to be?
Yeah, it all came to be when Kanga were as a separate company outside of ours. We were a supplier to Kanga loaders for drive units, augers, wear parts.
One of our bigger
They
buyers.
were actually
back
one
then.
of our bigger customers, and they came to us probably February or something about needing to do a JV with us, a bit of a package, because they got themselves into some sort of financial difficulty and just needed a bit of an assistance. And Susie, as the CEO at the time, she looked at that, and I remember her contacting myself and telling me what they'd come to it with, and when we looked at it harder, a JV was out of the question. We couldn't go into a JV in that situation, and we put a proposal to acquire the business, and one thing led to another, and we sat down with the lawyers and the banks and whatever, and our offer was accepted. And we were an attachment manufacturer. We weren't a machinery manufacturer, and we probably never in those days we didn't intend on being a machinery manufacturer, but we wanted to save another good Australian-made product and keep that Australian-made, not let it go down the drain, and obviously
Either oblivion or get consumed.
Gets consumed up by an overseas business and whatever. So we wanted to keep that in Australia. So our initial plans, however, was to acquire the business, bring it back to where it was in previous years, and then basically sell it off to an Australian company or however, whether it was going to be a management buyout or whatever. That was the plan. But as time's gone on, we've enjoyed it. It's had its difficult times, with product and whatever. But now we believe we make a really good product, and it's been accepted. We're now expanding that product into the US, and that product's going into the UK and potentially into Europe. So it's expanding. We as the company, the loader manufacturer, we've obviously got to expand ourselves too. So
yeah,
but that was the 2009. That was the flashback to them, was that when we acquired that, to bring it back to where it was, to keep it Australian made. As we've moved on, we've just hung on to it, and it's
taken it way past where it was. You hear the old Kanga boys talking about how many units they used to make back in the day compared to how many units go out now, and the versatility of it, and the small changes, the subtle changes that are made into the performance of it, and those sorts of things that, and that's all the might of the Digga engineering team and production team and all that's added to that product and helped it to regain its status.
Yeah, and it's continually improving. We're trying to keep up with a lot of things going on in the world, and there's no spoiler alert, but there's better things to come. So
and I'm sure the decision to purchase Kanga would have been hard, because at the end of the day we supply all the competitors, and many of them would have liked to have seen Kanga go broke. It would have
for sure.
increased their market share.
Yeah. Well, that was in the early days in sales. That was one of the big things we had to combat. They would think that I can't deal with you because you're Kanga now. Well,
We're not Kanga.
Digga did that very strategically, and it's a separate business, albeit that the point of the pyramid is the same. It's run so differently in that we still process the orders for Kanga as Digga, and Digga still supply the attachments to Kanga, and the Kanga has their own sales team and
they've got their own management
team.
Yep.
You allocate the marketing. There's their own marketing guys that do that stuff. So it's very separate, even though it's under the same umbrella. So.
Yeah, on the sales side, they're a dealer of ours, and on a manufacturing side, we pretty much manufacture to order for them.
Yep.
They give us a forecast, and that's what we do. I guess a lot of our dealers who sell mini loaders have come to accept it. And,
Absolutely.
It works hand in hand, and we haven't heard a lot of noise lately. All right, well, I think we're running over time. We were going to have another segment called Story Time where you're going to share some stories, but we might leave that for next time.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Before we go, if you have a question regarding this podcast or a topic suggestion for a future podcast, let us know by emailing podcast@digga.com. We'll try to answer your questions in an upcoming episode. If you enjoyed this episode of the Digga podcast, don't forget to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next one. And leave us a 5-star review while you're there. And also don't forget to tell your friends about it. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and through our website digga.com. Thanks for listening.